Well, just from the lip sync.
Uh-huh.
Or
we could just... Imagine if we went back and recorded, like, our old podcasts, but, like, lip synced to them in video form. So...
That would be kind of insane.
It would be kind of
It would be
insane.
unspoken hours of work.
It would be.
It would probably be around, 140 hours of work.
Thereabouts.
In the ballpark.
Somewhere in that range, which would not be worth it, but, like, that
would be an extremely funny bit.
Like, for one, like, random re-upload or something. Like,
I've thought at certain points about whether we could remaster some of those episodes.
or at least revisit the topics.
Yeah,
Well, what do you mean remaster?
like some episodes that we wish we had back,
Yeah,
Like,
we phoned in a few.
Yeah, and also there was a few very early on where we didn't quite
Not just
hit our
literally.
stride. Well, then not, like, particularly early on, but here and there. Like, where we didn't quite hit our stride and really hadn't figured out how we wanted to face
I feel like
things.
those need to be preserved, though, just as
we're not going to scrub the
this is where we
originals,
This is
obviously.
where we
Yeah,
came
we keep
from.
them, but we
Add to them with, like, the
Yeah.
perspective we have now.
4 years later,
Yeah.
same number of listeners.
That could be interesting.
as it is and always shall be.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
In secula seculorum. In spatula spatulorum.
Per omnia. Spatula spatulorum.
I am now remembering I have not yet uploaded the previous episode, but that won't matter because it will be the case by the time this is out. So
Right.
It better be.
yeah, I edited it. It's done. I just need
If,
to upload
if
it.
what I think is happening
Is
is
happening.
happening,
It
had better not be.
I will say, like, right after we finished recording the previous episode, which is, Mob Psycho Part
Yep.
2, and then seeing
woke
on
mob.
YouTube the backlog of How to Train Your Personality come back
Yeah,
up.
I was like, that's a
that
weird
was, like,
coincidence.
great timing.
Great timing. You need to get that out there so
Yeah.
timing can be, really...
That was a weird coincidence.
It is. But, like...
But the window is passed.
Yes.
Because
We've had a few more backlog episodes come out since then.
Yeah,
But that was funny that, like, it's...
just kind of right on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be super easy and convenient.
Super
if
easy.
you're going through-
barely an inconvenience.
Precisely. If you go through our YouTube channel, you can find the most recent Mob Psycho episode, as well as the first one we did, however long ago that was now. I don't know where
given
the
that it was
backlogs-
episode 50?
I think 50 was
50 was
Undertale,
was-
but it was in the
was
early
Undertale.
50s. Yeah. We're getting,
In the ballpark of 3 years.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
3.5.
So the backlog is getting about into the 50s now.
It wouldn't quite be. It'd be 2.5, wouldn't it?
I could look up the date,
Yeah.
whatever that episode was, but all the same.
Regardless, if you're watching this on YouTube, both Mob Psycho things are up there now. Of course,
Yeah.
if you're listening on Spotify, the first Mob Psycho episode's been there
Just
forever.
just search in our playlist, or if you really want to.
And while you're there, hit the like and the subscribe button.
Buy our supplements and T-shirts.
Buy our merch.
We do not
That
have
we don't
merch.
have.
No, I'm not going to bother with that.
Not at this stage. Not at this.
If we ever did
Given
merch,
how things have gone, probably never.
Probably never.
if we ever did merch, I would just do the pain T-shirt.
Oh, it's so good. James, bring up the clip.
Yep. I think I still have the PNG for that somewhere.
Just from that one
TKO
Jackbox round.
Yeah.
That was. I love that game. I think that my favorite Jackbox games are the ones where you can draw, because they get more unhinged than just text answers sometimes.
Yep.
It's a different kind of unhinged.
Like the kind where you can draw like a square and people choose the square over everything else that actually looks funny because
just because it's
for the
paired
bit.
with the, and sometimes it's paired
If
with
something
the
is
right.
established as a bit in the first round, we will stick with it long past it being funny or even relevant to the prompt that the game gave us.
Because you know us, if there's a bit, we commit to it.
Yep, we commit it to death. That's what we do.
And the less sequiturs, the more we like it.
Yeah. Bottom text.
Bottom text.
Ah, man.
Those were the days.
They still kind of are the days occasionally, just not as frequently as they were.
Mm-hmm. I do think, like, while we have this house, we should have a couple more get-togethers of that ilk.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether it's like a Friendsgiving or a Christmas party or a Halloween
Yeah,
party or
Friendsgiving could be
something.
fun. It's almost mid-October. What day is it today?
As of the recording of this
Yeah.
podcast, we
It's
are
October
dating
8th.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Today, so.
Or 5 days past the day he asked me what day it was. That's all I know
And
about
the
that
day
movie.
we're supposed to remember.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Well,
Not that
That
one.
was weeks ago.
Not that one.
Anyway, I think Friendsgiving or something like that would be fun. I mean, just generally having people over is a good time.
Mm-hmm.
This also seems like a very odd thing to discuss on the podcast, although it's not the oddest thing we've ever bantered about. Actually, it's probably up there, frankly, like discussing our get-together plans.
Yeah, usually it's some weird idiosyncratic muse that I've had.
And I feel like those are a bit more approachable
Yeah.
for people who aren't
We'll call
in
it
our
that.
lives.
I suppose.
People are at least accepting. We'll run with that.
Like, if you're still here at this point,
Good for
you're
you.
here for unhinged, weird tangents, and that's kind of what you're after. And
If you're
Punctuated
still
with occasionally in-depth analysis, which is the top.
hidden amongst ungodly amounts of recap.
Like searching for Jolly Ranchers in a grass lawn.
Have
You
you?
gotta sort through the dirt and kind of dust it off a little bit before you get to the sweetness at the bottom you actually came for.
You speak as though this is coming from experience.
It's not. I don't think.
I could see it in your eyes that you were making it up as you went
I
along.
was. But it's still communicated nonetheless.
I suppose. What it communicated.
There will be
You
no
know,
ants on these Jolly
Art
Ranchers.
transcends the artist, you know. It's-
Yeah, for sure.
It can communicate something to you that James never intended.
Yep. Even if I get canceled, it'll still communicate.
What are we getting canceled about today?
The woke mob from last week.
The woke Bob is after me. Should have made that the episode card.
Oh yeah, that was. I mean, I still can.
Because you haven't published it yet.
Yeah.
That would be funny.
I think I did Mob Psycho and the Rumor Weed, but I think I'll do that as the thumbnail.
We will certainly not pass the inspection by the Japanese review board. Don't you remember that
'Cause of the
Crunch
flag?
episode
Oh,
where they like had their podcast get reviewed by some Catholic media review agency?
oh,
That was quite a while ago.
yeah. This is a long time ago.
Oh.
I think I remember what you're talking about.
But they're like, yeah, we didn't pass.
Okay.
They just say unhinged things.
Yeah. Maybe it was when Elon Musk bought Twitter and Patrick said, "Kill him. Nobody can have that much power. Do it." Something like that, in jest, of course. But, yeah, no, it's the cancelable things I've either edited or bleeped out, which makes them more funny. I haven't had to bleep something out in a while. I was about to say something I'd had to bleep out. I didn't. I'll say what it was after. It's not that harmless, but it sounds bad.
It's not that harmless.
I would only have to
Not
bleep
that
it
harmful. Not that harmful. Yeah. Generally, I feel like we keep it pretty chill.
The most cancelable things we say are probably our views align with those of the Catholic Church as defined in the Catechism, and there are groups who would take issue with that if they discovered us. Yes,
at such.
But I mean, you walked into a Catholic podcast to hear Catholic people talk about things.
And the horse says, "Why the long face?"
and the bartender walks into a bar.
Have you seen the cartoon like panel where it's like these two guys at a bar and one's like, "Yeah, me and my buddy have a podcast about movies, except the twist is we kind of joke around a little bit." It's like, yeah, that's kind of every podcast, isn't it?
It kind of is, but like the big thing is, do you vibe with the personalities on display?
It's the same deal with any other
It's
YouTube
like, whether it's any kind.
You don't really listen to the podcast for the podcast. You listen to the podcast because you like the person podcasting,
or you like the people and the way they approach the content. Right. If they like our insights, or if they like our jokes, or if they like our voice. Like if you like my voice, you have problems. Maybe, I don't know.
Or they're your girlfriend.
Or that, I don't know.
Those aren't mutually exclusive, I
suppose.
Hello, Bridget. Anyway, moving on.
Are we making that public on the podcast?
We mentioned. I thought we said you were dating somebody. We
didn't say who or what or
you know who
where
you
or
are.
Why.
This is. I've never.
This is her address.
This can be.
This is her last name.
This is her social security number and credit card.
The routing number to her bank account. The last name of her first pet.
The last.
Plot twist. It's also her last. I don't like people giving pets their last names. Oh, speaking of last names, so I was at a Fleet store picking up supplies for our young adults trap shoot this coming weekend as of recording this. And they're like, "Okay, can we get your last name for the order?" I was like, "LaPlante." And they're like, "Okay, LaPlante." I was just like, yeah.
Bruh, I just said it.
I just said my name with the proper pronunciation, and you corrected me to the wrong one. I, a paying customer, no less. But in the moment, I was just like, I'm hungry. I want to go home. Whatever. Yeah, that's my name. Yep, that's it. Even though I just said what it was. Yeah. And the funny thing was, the second guy wasn't even looking at the sheet. I was like, yeah, LaPlante. Oh, yeah, LaPlante. Yeah.
That's
sure.
The thing is, like, sometimes you write down a word or you write down a name and you don't hear it said aloud when you write it down initially. Mm-hmm. And so you read it as something.
Right. That's
and
natural.
Commit it to your mind as something. And so you're thinking, it's like, there are so many times I go to a place and I'm in the
beautiful house with a beautiful wife.
How did I get here?
Yeah.
No. I walk into like the haircut place and they have me on file because
from
I
previous times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I will sign in using my full name, and I walk in and they check me in and they push the button and say, "Okay, you're checked in." It will change from Nathan to Nate.
Why? Why?
Because somebody was like, "Okay, I will shorten this," even though you specifically gave me your whole name.
Even though it's only 2 extra letters.
One? No,
two.
It's 2 extra letters, but one of them is different.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it's just slightly more effort to type out your full name than to, I guess, abbreviate it.
Not like I'm against it. I'm not offended by people removing a syllable from my name.
Yeah.
It's just, I introduced myself as my full name. Mm-hmm. When we get into the we're the Palladian Papists, I'm James, I'm Nathan, I'm Riley. I go, I'm Nathan, not Nate.
Yeah.
If I refer
usernames
if haircut lady is listening to this
shout
podcast.
out to the haircut lady.
If you're listening to this, and we know that you are, if you were, which you certainly are not, but if you did, you would immediately take into account what he says and completely forget and double down.
It's an interesting juxtaposition of those bits.
Yeah.
We're here
one
for
of which-
interesting
one of which-
juxtapositions.
one of-
Speaking of doubling down,
And
we're the
interesting
Palladium Papists.
juxtaposition.
I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Riley.
We sort of gave the preview, the thumbnail, if you will, the audible thumbnail to the intro, which we have now presented to you.
That was the intro that I foreshadowed earlier. It was really
30
clever.
seconds earlier, or however long it was. We're doing a philosophical.
Maybe you felt a little deja vu with a glitch in the Matrix because we're talking about the Matrix.
We're doing, The Matrix. Philmosophical about the Wachowski film, The Matrix.
So let's get philosophical about films now that the intro is rolled, I assume.
More or less, yeah, on the audio version because I'm too lazy to film a bumper for the for the video version.
You can't. You don't have like the logo fade in or something like that with the.
That could be lame, I suppose. I do that for like just the regular podcast intro.
Sure.
So
We'll just show the logo again.
yeah,
I don't know. Just have it pop up here
Just over our faces
over our faces.
with a still frame.
Give me the Mike Wazowski treatment where it's over my
every time
face
you're
the
on
entire
the screen,
time.
it just like blocks you out. So naturally, because you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify, we only exist in the computer, just like the main character of this film, Neo.
He doesn't just exist in the computer, but that's a twist that happens later.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
And speaking of spoilers, his name is an anagram for one. Ooh boy. So Neo Anderson is a developer or something, and he's hanging out in late 90s world stuff, just living his life. But then things seem kind of weird. And this lady in leather shows up because it's the 90s and it's this movie. And it's like
Come with me if you want to live.
something like that.
Elrond is coming for you.
Elrond is coming, yeah. So so they take him aside and they're like, I forget. Okay, we're like, oh yeah, we could probably do this from memory because we've seen it. Okay, so anyway,
I mean, there's some chases.
there's some chases and
shenanigans.
stuff. The agents in this world are like arresting Neo and taking his mouth off for a second to scare him and stuff like that. So stuff's weird.
Injecting scorpions into his belly button as you do.
Yep, and so a group of people this guy in leather with sunglasses, Lawrence Fishburne, takes Neo aside and is like, hey, this world isn't real. Red pill or blue pill. You find out how deep the rabbit hole goes and like all the stuff about the world you think is real, but it's not. Or you take the other pill. I don't remember which one is which. I don't
The
know.
blue is the pill that makes you forget.
Okay.
The red pill. That's why all the 4chan kiddies call it being red pilled.
Yeah. I don't use Reddit, so I'll take your word for it.
4chan. Not
4chan,
Reddit.
right.
Not the same thing.
So Neo chooses the red pill, and this group of people in leather work to get him out. They have to get him to a phone because it's dial up, and
Because the Matrix runs on Windows 98.
yep. So they pull him out of the Matrix, and he wakes up in a pot of goo. And he gets released from the pot of goo and ejected and picked up by a group of what turns out to be rebel humans who have also escaped the computer system known as the Matrix. So they pull him out and tell him what's going on.
Turns out in the future, computers get so good that they enslave human beings, trap them in pods, and use them as giant batteries to power and replicate.
And to keep them supplicant, they created a simulated world for them to live in so they feel as if nothing's wrong. And they have like these computer connections that run into their spinal cords or something like that. So Neo, Lawrence Fishburne believes that Morpheus, that's his name, Lawrence Morpheus decides that there's been foretold a messianic-like figure called the One will become basically super powerful in the Matrix and set humanity free from the machines. And he thinks that Neo could be the one. And so he's like, I'm going to train you and make you the best around. So he downloads Kung Fu onto his brain, and they train in a sort of test environment. And
there's a bunch
cool
of this
fight
world's
scenes.
not real, so you can break the rules of it. You don't have to breathe.
Because there aren't really any rules.
There's no spoons in here.
Yep. So once they train up Neo and make him into one of the leather-wearing people, they go back into the Matrix.
I go to talk to Oracle.
Yeah, who's this program inside the Matrix that was kind of aware of what was going on at the beginning, and she's kind of pro-human, and the other programs don't mess with her. It turns out like Agent Smith is this one of the programs that sort of polices the Matrix and keeps people in line. So these agents in the Matrix are super powerful, and if you die in the Matrix, you die in real life, more or less. So he's hunting Neo down because he escaped, and you're not supposed to do that. And no human can really fight with agents on their
They
terms.
got hacks on their
Yeah.
side.
Yep. So they're getting chased by the agents, and Neo talks to Oracle. There is no spoon. One of the guys in the leather crew,
And the other leather crew? Or the good leather crew or the bad
The leather rebels.
The leather rebels.
yeah, he is like, you know what? Life on the outside of the Matrix is hard. I want back in. I'm going to betray the crew and turn them into Neo, or turn them into Agent Smith. So he kills a guy that is on the other side of the Inception dream machine thing, and tries to turn them in. I think they capture Lawrence Morpheus, and yeah, they do.
It's pretty much just Trinity and Neo.
Trinity and Neo get out, and they're like sort of the last hope. And Trinity's like, well, you haven't gotten in touch with your one powers. Morpheus believed in you. Let's go in there and try to rescue him. So they get they go to the e-store and get all the guns. And
You wouldn't download a gun.
And all the
you wouldn't download Kung Fu.
and all the trench coats.
And all the trench coats.
All
And
the
so
trench coats.
they go into the agent's stronghold and have a big old fight to rescue Morpheus and Lawrence Morpheus. And when they get there, and I'm probably fudging it a little bit, but at some point, Neo ends up in a 1v1 me bro with Agent Smith, who, as it turns out, wants to get out of the Matrix himself and experience the outside world as a machine. He's sick of being a babysitter for humans, and he wants out. So that's why he sort of tricked that guy into betraying him, so he could figure out some way to get into a body and get out of there. But Neo is sort of his obstacle to that. So they fight, and then Neo sort of dies, but then he realizes, wait a minute, your bullets can't beat me because I can't read because now I can see code. So he is able to manipulate reality in the Matrix and beat the crap out of the agents and subsume them.
And become the one leaving setup for sequels.
Yeah, and Lawrence Morpheus is like he's the one, and Neo can fly around now, happy ever after, and that's the only movie you need to care about. We'll get to that. We can just sort of do a brief recap of the second movie because not a whole lot actually happens in the second movie, but it takes like 40 minutes of talking and about an hour and a half of one action scene before they finally get to the point. So in the second movie, Neo's the one, and the Agent Smith is able to clone himself for some reason. He's just slowly taking over the Matrix and going crazy. And Neo finds out that the whole concept of the one was something the machines created because they recognized that human beings needed hope or they would die on the vine, so to speak, and they'd be bad batteries. So they let every few generations a messianic figure pop up and lead them to what seems like a victorious rebellion. And yeah, but all the same, there's this city of free people on the outside of the Matrix in the real world called Zion, where they have weird orgies and stuff. But they're threatened by the machines that look like the Chicken Little alien ships, And so Neo is talking to like sort of the game master, I don't like the Dos Equis guy in this white computer room who's explaining the plot to him. And it's kind of one of those scenes where I'm just wondering now. We're just like, really? You sort of Ryan Johnson this 20 years before it happened. Actually, the thing you thought was cool in the first movie isn't actually that cool. Anyway, so the Matrix is kind of a lie, within a lie. But Neo manages to say, no, I'm built different, and still defeat the machines. And he's able to manipulate and control them in the real world, but he's blind now. He's able to stop them with his force hands and save Zion. And I never watched the third movie, but as I understand it, maybe this is something that happens in the third movie. I'm getting mixed up. But they defeat the machines, and the Matrix kind of goes into a sort of state where the programs are happy, but the people are free until the fourth movie, which we'll pretend didn't happen.
Nobody
That's
saw it.
more or less a summary of sorts.
Yes, of sorts.
So we're going to mainly focus on the main one or the
first one.
The first one, because that's really the main one you should care about. And we'll get into the other ones and why sequels can be kind of a bit of a landmine or minefield to navigate. So for the first Matrix film, what do we think is cool about them besides sunglasses and leather and green filter?
It's funny looking back on the first one because a lot of what it did became so prolific in pop culture.
Lots of guns and leather and cool sunglasses and weird
slow-mo explosions,
techno trap
slow-mo
music.
backflips. Like some of that has become, so much of that has become so just kind of trite and predictable.
It made ripples throughout the action genre for the next decade.
Like that movie is the reason the X-Men in the first live-action X-Men wear black leather instead of colorful costumes and have to lampshade that we're not wearing the colorful costumes. Because wouldn't that be stupid, Deadpool and Wolverine coming out in 2024?
You could even argue that this aesthetic created the cool and edgy older brother from the early 2000s that everyone tried to pander to, including the world-famous Shadow the Hedgehog game.
The edge. But
yeah.
it was distinctive when it came out.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why it worked. Mm-hmm. And also I think it's funny, like you look at it's 1999, computer graphics have only come so far, but this is a movie all about people who live in a computer. So if things look fake and computery,
stop all the downloading.
It fits, right? Mm-hmm. They worked within their limitations, and it's like, this may look stupid and computery, but like they're in the computer. What do you expect?
Hey kid, I'm a computer.
It's an online life, Mom. I can't pause it.
You can't pause real life, Mom.
This is a dark dystopian future where all of humanity, not just Twitter, is terminally online.
Terminal.
Quite literally.
Yeah, and you got some classic hero's journey arc to this. You know, guy living his normal life, called out of it by a strange wizard man, and has to learn
Strange wizard man with sunglasses and jelly beans,
just like Gandalf, and has to go outside of his comfort zone into danger to save the world or whatever the stakes are. That's sort of a broad strokes.
It's just the hero's journey that also plagiarized a little bit of Jesus and a little bit of Eastern philosophy.
Thanks, Joseph Campbell.
Except his dad didn't die.
Yeah. There is really no parentage in this.
No, he's just... They don't talk about his parents at all. He just kind of exists as this.
I think they sort of
like
guy. Clone them, or not clone them, but like just they make,
yeah.
The machines make them in jars.
Make pod people, but like he doesn't call his mom. He's like a 20-something guy who's single in the city and just doesn't call his mom.
Sounds like 1999,
I suppose.
Yeah, and I think I literally did a presentation in college with a buddy because we were going over different like rhetorical theories and things like that. And this one was like basically the prime example of like Joseph Campbell's whole like school of thought and things like that. So it was a pretty easy assignment. We also made our presentation why the other movies are horrible and you don't need to watch them. Just like as a little side note. So not horrible, but
Fail to examine and act upon what was good about the first one.
Because that's the funny thing about a sequel. On some level, when you go to a sequel, you kind of want more of the first one, but also...
Which they certainly did in the second one.
Right.
A
but
lot.
like, it's about what you deliver more of. Do you just deliver more slow-mo and leather?
Yeah.
Or do you deliver more examination of the characters and the themes and ideas in ways that are cohesive with the first one, but also, like, bring up questions about the first one and develop interesting ideas in, like, does it contrast? Does it complement?
The second movie takes the concept of the thinking man's movie TM too far.
Yeah.
Because like I mentioned in the white computer room where Neo's talking to like the guy who's sort of behind the controls program thing, just sits there and talks. The time stamp is probably out there somewhere, but feels like 10 minutes just straight this guy explaining to him how the Matrix works and just sitting there talking at Neo forever. It's like, okay, you can't just sit there and give me a video essay about what the twist is inside the movie.
No, it's not like the first one can't be... It's not that the first one isn't occasionally pretentiously intellectualist a little bit.
Welcome to the desert of the real, he says, showing him a PowerPoint of why the world sucks now.
Yeah. It's so there's points where the original first one is a little full of itself, and it's like, aren't I so deep? Reality isn't even real. There is no spoon.
Which is very 90s older brother postmodern Vogue.
Right. But there's also just, it sounds like the second two go off the rails with how seriously it takes itself and how unseriously it comes across.
This game is like, dude, I've got the semi-transparent green plastic GameCube. I am the coolest thing ever.
No, that was
or
the
N64.
Xbox.
Sorry, Xbox.
N64. Yeah, that one also came in transparent colors.
This
There's like a weird spot in the late '90s and early 2000s where transparent plastic that was colored, but you could see the circuitry inside was the thing.
Yep. It's like, this movie is super cool, isn't it? Is kind of like, and for the time, it was probably pretty hype, I imagine.
I mean, even now you watch it,
no,
and
it
it's
still
fun
holds
and
up.
It's cool. It's
Yeah.
just you gotta remember it was of its time.
Right.
That's
It
not
belongs
bad.
on all-time classic lists because it was kind of one of those benchmark movies that defined its era and is a good study of like sort of classic tried and true storytelling.
It's a time capsule and a trendsetter.
So it's noteworthy for that. And Keanu Reeves is fun. This is
Not much is demanded of him
no.
acting wise.
He
Because
just
he's-
stands around and looks confused most of the time.
He's pretty good at doing that.
Which, him being the audience, like, stand-in everyman character isekai'd into the real world, him standing around confused and having people explain things at him is his job as the character.
Yep. Just like in Bill and Ted.
Right.
And I don't think this was his first like serious role, but it was certainly his first like
It was
big,
his breakout role.
Yeah.
Because he was around prior. He was in acting in the 80s in Bill and Ted and stuff like that. So
Yep.
he just wasn't typical leading man action hero type thing until this movie. And then suddenly we need to cast literally anybody and put them in black leather. Keanu Reeves didn't really pop off as a celebrity. He was in a lot of things, but like it was more just the aesthetic and the technology that popped off. Like, I feel like Keanu was only really became beloved after John Wick and You're Breathtaking.
Yep. I mean, there was sort of a cult. There's always been like a cult following of like The Matrix and like his other films, like.
Oh yeah, and like calling the Matrix's fan base a cult following is they would like to think they're a cool elite cult following.
Yep. It's like you were the sort of guys to have like a weed poster in your apartment. It's very pre 9/11 Y2K futurism. Sort of the vibe I get.
And like early onset of the internet, where it's like people didn't know what the internet was or how it worked, but
it was deep and mysterious, and crap could happen. It made for fertile ground for sci-fi.
Yes,
which I think this would qualify as, right?
Yes,
yeah,
it meets that definition easily.
Yeah. Other things, other cool things, or things we like about the Matrix.
It has been a while since I watched it,
yeah.
So it's like
it's also been a minute since I watched it.
Yeah,
I think the last time I watched it was with you guys back in 2019.
Why didn't we review it then?
Because it was before we started the podcast.
Oh, right. Yeah, that would explain it.
Did I go to bed before you watched it? Because I don't recall
sure
this.
you were there.
Was I?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I was. Maybe
it's been a minute, but yeah, it's fairly it's kind of a what's on the tin kind of a movie.
Yes. Now there are like, it has themes and it explores them,
right.
But like a lot of it,
they're fairly accessible, at least to if you're familiar with movies and how
the cool older brother bro type picked up on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not incredibly intellectual, despite how it wants to be presented as.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, you have to have an extraordinarily high IQ to understand the Matrix.
But like, there's nothing like wrong with being.
No. Yeah,
like,
we're not like knocking it. It's just funny to roast.
Right, but it's exactly what it sets out to be, which is a over the top, cool sci-fi action film, and it succeeded.
Wouldn't it be sick if?
What if everything's a simulation?
Mm-hmm.
What would happen if you tried to break out? What if there was like Jesus leading us to the promised land, but it was like
what if I
one
put like a henna throw rug in my apartment and bought a hookah and didn't use it, but everybody that came over thought it was cool.
Sounds sick, bro.
Yeah. You want to get some Doritos and play Tony Hawk Pro Skater?
Was that out in 1999?
Maybe in PS1. Dude.
Sick.
Yeah. Let's go shop for Ray-Bans at the mall.
Bro.
Let's go to Hot Topic. Dude, my dad's got this cool new Ford Taurus.
Dude, what color?
Silver, man.
Bro.
It's almost chrome.
Like, you can see shit reflected in it.
Yeah, I'm gonna tint my BMW someday.
That's so hardcore, man.
Yeah. My dream car is a Toyota Celica.
Not a Firebird?
No. Well, okay. No, Pontiac Firebird's my stepdad's car. Anyway, and this movie did some really cool things at the time because like the late 90s, early 2000s was like sort of when computer graphics, like Nathan was talking about, were starting to get really good. And there's some famous shots like, Neo dodging the bullets where like the camera circles around him, where they literally just had a wall of cameras in a circle around him to get that shot. And there's like some very early 3D
like
stuff.
interlacing between the shots. Yeah.
Yep. Things that are now routine visual effects shots were pioneered for this movie.
And it's like prior to this film, you had
and there's still a lot of
other,
practical
like,
effects,
really cool digital effects that were like first time things. We got like Terminator 2 with the guy melting metal guy walking through bars.
Mm-hmm.
But like this was really one of the earliest effects films to really like show what could be done with digital effects.
And there's still a lot of practical stuff too. Like all the guns are just like straight up pyrotechnics and things like that.
There's like one behind the scenes blooper I saw where they blew up a whole concrete wall, but he missed his cue and they fumbled it, so they had.
It's like, we just have a truckload of explosives. We're just going to keep doing this till it works in slow motion. And it pays off. It's pretty cool. But there's a lot of things that now everybody like, oh, yeah, that's just CG. Or it's like, well, not exactly. No, that's...
It's like back in the day, they had to integrate it with practical effects because as good as the computer graphics were, they couldn't get that realism of exploding pillars.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that on a green screen now. You could pretty much animate an entire film and it would be pretty believable for like 90% of it until people had to move their mouth.
Lion King.
Yeah.
My point exactly.
Yeah. I guess we could explore the themes of it a little bit since we were pretty light on the plot, which, I mean, the plot's fairly simple. One of them is like sort of the classic, what would happen if AI took over, is like sort of the premise of the film. Man's relationship to technology, especially computers. This definitely popularized it because I
don't
think
know that I would say that.
It was pretty common.
Well,
before
it was
and
sort
pretty
of
common afterwards.
concurrent.
It followed the trajectory of its time in exploring different ways that could be the case, but I think you could make the argument that, I don't know, I would say Dune was probably one of the earliest works to really kind of hit that.
Mm-hmm. But computer technology wasn't really quite mainstream and consumerized until like early 90s, mid 90s is when like PCs were a thing. So it was sort of hit the point where now people were becoming accustomed. Computers are part of daily life. So it wasn't really that much of a stretch to start doing think piece, like, you know, imaginative storytelling about like, okay, let's take this to a logical conclusion down the road if things continue on a current trajectory. Seems to be sort of like the idea behind this movie.
That's much science fiction.
Right. Yeah.
Where it's like, with what we know now, what could happen in the future, that kind of speculative reality.
Yeah. And it's kind of more it doesn't really actually focus on technology that much. It's more of like, what is humanity vis-a-vis French stuff? I'm smart. Just like the movie. What is humanity? What makes us different from the machines?
Right.
If machines are smart enough to do basically everything we do, and this is a conversation that happens today because now AI, machine learning stuff is becoming quite prolific. What makes us human compared to these machines?
And there's also kind of a question in this film of the value of truth.
Mm-hmm.
Is it better to know the truth despite it being harmful, or to simply accept a convenient lie?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Would you rather, is ignorance truly bliss, or is it better to know and be enlightened? There's like that central question. Of like,
And with that enlightenment comes responsibility. Do you want that responsibility?
mm-hmm.
The guy who sort of betrays the team decides that he's had enough. He just wants to go back to drinking the Kool-Aid and living his sort of blissfully ignorant life. But you can't really go back once you've accepted responsibility.
Right.
And,
to whom much is given, much is expected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you see that in some people with like a hostility to like education.
Mm.
Because and this is a very raw idea, but it seems like we sort of know instinctually that like the more you know, like the more you have to like, you can't just let that knowledge sit. You have to do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like sort of that desire to avoid the responsibility that just sort of helps you justify.
Return to peasant.
Yeah, return to peasant. We were weren't we well fed in the land of Egypt, kind of a thing.
Right.
So I guess any thoughts on that? That just sort of occurred to me.
But that does seem to be like one of the central conflicts of the film, where it's like, do you take the red pill or the blue pill? Is the red pill actually better? Ultimately, the film decides that yes, the truth is more important, and
Because it would be a lot cooler if you did.
right, you get to wear leather and have sunglasses when you take the red pill. But like, it's ultimately the truth that sets you free.
Yep.
A lie is just a form of enslavement, right? So, like, that's one of the core questions it ponders. It comes to a conclusion.
Yep.
And the conclusion it comes to is kind of an obvious one. It's like, you know, most people will know that, like, if there's an objective truth, it's true. You
Right.
know? If you believe that there's an objective truth, then that's what's best and what everyone should be exposed to and know. So it's not the most creative answer, but if it's the right answer, right? But it's also, it asks that question and makes you consider, like, would you take the blue pill? Would you if tomorrow Morpheus showed up and was like, hey, everything sucks and your life's a lie, take the red pill or the blue pill? Like, would you choose truth over...
There's a non-zero number of people that would.
Right, it's a really enticing temptation.
Even though this movie is like sort of the classic cited example whenever the idea that we live in a simulation is brought up, even though that's like the premise of the movie, they don't really actually dive into that all that much. Like, whether our reality,
Right.
as viewers of the movie, if it is a simulation, it doesn't really talk about that, because what the film cares more about is, even if that was the case, there are certain things about being a human being that would still hold true. You could say the film also kind of touches on how, like, technology augments our lives and is even becoming more and more dominant, but you can never fully substitute
The human element,
Yeah.
the human experience.
Yep. Because the machines are constantly accounting for, like, humanity's imperfections, and there's still issues with their system. There's sort of a humanist bent to it, where it's like, you know, the indomitability of the human spirit and stuff like that.
It's more of a Nietzschean bent. It's kind of an Übermensch kind of thing. And that was kind of be one of the points I raised is I've been a little bit quiet on this segment because I've been trying to sort through my own bias about online red pill culture, but like it seems to me that it's not really trying to say so much human is different as I am different. It's quite subjective and doesn't really care about anyone else. It's all about me and what I do and the fact that I am in control and I manipulate reality.
And I get the pretty girl at the end.
I am the one who was foretold because Neo, the main character, self-insert, like all the cool bros are like, he's just like me, bro.
I think
And more of a, this is who I aspire to be, even if that's not me. I want to be the guy who is in control of the world. I want to have all the power.
I want to download Kung Fu.
I want to be the master of my own destiny and of my own reality.
I suppose this film probably influenced a lot of young adult fiction with those tropes. Like, you know, you're special. You're not like the other kids.
It's
a
like
little bit. I mean, they all draw from the same
an
source.
appeal to someone's otherness. You know, because like
Which is all the rage nowadays. This was sort of the beginning of that trend.
Not really.
Like the modern
Popularization in popular culture.
Right. Yep. Like, it wasn't the beginning, like, point, but like this was sort of a point,
an inflection point.
an inflection point. Yeah, there we go.
Because there's like way too many movies from, well, I've seen a lot of post 2000s movies where it's like, oh, you're the weirdos, you're the weird kids, but they're the people that save the day. And it's like,
contrast that with, say, like, I haven't seen it yet, but like Breakfast Club is like, as I understand it, they are the weirdos. They are the main characters, but the film never, to my knowledge, disputes that they're weirdos. But they're just like more. It's more of a
We're living in our weirdness.
Yeah, as opposed to actually your weirdness makes you better than everyone else. Kind of a change in philosophy from a filmmaking standpoint. Need to watch Breakfast Club.
Probably should watch it before we make statements on it.
From my internet osmosis of the movie,
Sure. But, like,
that's my take.
I don't know. It's one of those things where when you feel seen, when you've been othered for so long, it is easy to...
Whether
like,
in reality
latch onto
or
it.
perceived othered.
Right. It's easy to latch onto that and, like, make that your personality. I don't know.
They don't even know it's my birthday in the corner. Everyone's like, "Oh, hey, here's that guy. He's kind of cool." Like there's a little bit of that you see in people where it's like, they sort of isolate themselves, like nobody understands me. And everyone's like, "Hey, dude, what's going on?" Like they care and want to be part of his life. I think I keep commenting on movies I haven't seen, but Meet the Robinsons, isn't there a clip where it's like,
It's hey,
like,
Goob, how you doing? They all hated me.
don't you want to come out to my house after school? They all hated me. Like,
That's a fun one.
Yeah. And then sometimes people generally are like, pushed to the margins and
Oh, yes.
ostracized, but
then also, like, you were ostracized and pushed to the margins. Now you rise up against society.
That'll
because you've
show
taken
them.
the red pill.
yeah, that'll show them. And you see a lot of that today. And it sort of is magnified with the near universal access to the internet. Whereas people would do this in chat rooms and stuff back in the day, and 4chan was still sort of its own niche and sort of a minority. But now these things just sort of get spread around. Is this our millennials complaining about how evil the Gen Z kids are, Ark?
We are Gen Z kids.
I know.
This movie was a meme.
Yeah.
Shall we get into the analysis then?
Yeah.
Yes.
We sort of touched on why sequels are a problem, but I don't know.
That could be a topic that we milk another day.
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, we kind of have talked about that, but whatever.
I'm sure we've mentioned it.
But, like,
Plenty
being
of times.
specific about it and having, like, ironed out thoughts and examples would be probably a good thing. Preview for things to come. Inside Baseball, you love it.
It's technically a trilogy.
Time for Outside Baseball.
It's technically a trilogy, but all you need to know is in the first movie, pretty much.
So what's in the first movie? We got analysis. Yes?
Yeah. Truth. What truths can we find in the Matrix film?
Truth is truth.
Yes. What is truth? It's true.
What is real?
Truth is worth pursuing.
The sort of central question of the movie is what is real?
Let's not be solipsistic, but when confronted with everything you know isn't real, and you have some compelling reason to believe that, it pays to act upon that and to pursue that which is truly real.
Even if it's not like you live in a simulation, like if a belief is challenged,
all of us at some point have been disabused of a notion, whether that was me convinced that Bob the Builder was in fact an American program, for example,
Whether that was you being disabused of the fact that tomatoes do not contain hemoglobin.
precisely, that peanuts was not in fact owned by the King and Queen of England, notwithstanding the notions we've been disabused of. To each their own, no longer. It's how do you respond to that matters. Because there are people in the world where confronted with truth, which I don't want to get circular about truth, but they are confronted with reality. And they still choose to exist in their preconceived notion or whatever it is. They refuse to accept the cognitive dissonance of their way of thinking because they find comfort in it.
Well, they avoid the cognitive dissonance by simply refusing to think about it.
Yep.
That is not a good way to approach that.
Yeah. Abortion. As an example. But you can insert any commonly held erroneous belief here, you know. You go down the list. But it behooves us to take sort of that revelation and let it transform us. And that's really sort of the whole point of like the gospel, right? Sharing, like everybody, like the apostles were transformed by Jesus, and like, you know, go and baptize all nations. People at Pentecost and onwards were confronted with this reality that they were not aware of. And that was so incredibly compelling to them that they were baptized, you know, in droves. You're on a chariot ride, an angel teleports a guy to you and baptizes you in a pond.
Teleports you to a guy.
Yeah. And things like that are happening, and people are going to their deaths for this belief, you know, like in brutal fashion. I guess that's like sort of the best example of like letting truth transform you. What is truth? We should probably just answer that question real quick.
That's not a question we can answer in the next 5 minutes.
No. But what's an oversimplified version? Because people, there's like a sort of wink nod. There's sort of a wink nod, the truth, you know, that people do. It's like, you know, you just gotta accept reality, like in popular conversations. But I want to be a little more specific.
Oh, okay.
Within reason.
I'm going to give a very short dissertation on
Yes.
Truth in Aquinas is adequation, the conformity of one's picture of reality to reality. Phenomenology thinks about truth as revelation.
Mm-hmm.
Truth is reality revealing itself to you. It's more primal than adequation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not mere conformity. So.
Yeah. That's a good way of understanding it. So, and then obviously God, being truth itself, himself, reveals himself to us, and that's how we come to know
Yes.
reality.
It's hard to say, how can God be truth if truth is adequation, to what is he adequated? Like, yeah. So I find the truth as revelation more compelling than truth as adequation, but that's a topic for another day.
Right.
Snap back to reality.
Yeah. There goes gravity.
Goodness?
Yeah.
Or are we good with that?
Was there any
I
other
think we're good
truth?
with
I think we've discussed the core truths.
The only way to find the only way, oh gosh.
You know,
When truth is revealed to you, you should respond in a way.
I was about to do a meme, but you're saying something profound.
it doesn't really matter if we live in a simulation, because in a sort of way we are living in a world that lacks full reality.
True theology is the only way to find the truth about truth.
Yeah. But my point being is, like, you know, we are living in a world we were not created for. Like,
We were created
very
for it.
roughly speaking. Like, obviously,
To not
the
get
fullness
into
of the
the
reality
weeds,
we were
yes.
created for is unity with God, right?
Yes.
So
We were supposed to have that here.
we were supposed to have that here, and
That
then we broke.
and then we're supposed to have it even more fully
Yeah.
in the new
So
heavens and the new earth, but that got broken and God fixed it.
So there's an extent to which, yes, this isn't like all there is.
This
But-
world is passing away, but it was not created to be a waste, but designed to be lived in.
Mm-hmm. So I've never really seriously considered like the sort of simulation theory of the world, because of those convictions. Because it's we live in a world not created by machines, but by a creator who loves his creation, and out of a superabundance of goodness and love and generosity. So, not by machines wanting batteries. We're not the Energizer bunnies of this mortal coil.
You just keep going.
Yep, I do. Yeah, let's get into goodness then. What is good in the Matrix?
I think the main point of goodness is the brotherhood and fellowship of the Trenchcoat Rebellion.
Mm-hmm. Especially Lawrence Morpheus.
Being a mentor
Yeah.
figure for...
He is a true believer.
He sees the potential of Neo to become great. Potential Neo doesn't himself see. Nobody else really sees. The Oracle arguably doesn't see it, depending on how you interpret it. But and he...
I think she just understands TV.
But he sees this potential for Neo to be the one or a one.
Mm-hmm.
And calls him upward to it.
He's probably got the most ideological, purity out of the whole group. He's dedicated to this and will let nothing stand in his way.
Some of the other people have their own things that are jading them. I think Trinity's only there because the Oracle told her she'd find a boyfriend. Mm-hmm. But Lawrence Morpheus is there because he truly believes in saving.
And obviously you have the doubter who betrays them all.
Naturally. Because this is not in any way plagiarizing the Bible.
Nope. What? A Judas character in my hero's journey?
With about a figure who is the chosen one to save everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't be.
Goes to a place called Zion.
Mm-hmm.
To free the people from slavery.
The forces of evil and, slavery.
The forces of Agent Smith.
Mm-hmm. The forces of Chicken Little alien pods. The
forces of goop and evil.
Yeah.
Beauty.
Green.
It's cool.
It is cool. Okay. I've been making fun of it this whole time, but the movie is kind of cool.
You let go of your inhibitions, and even the choice to filter everything in the Matrix green is an aesthetic choice. That's you can tell when you're in the Matrix, and you can tell when you're not. There's a difference when the blindfold is taken off and you're in the real world and the green is gone, and you're oh, this is different. It feels different because you're in the real world.
Yeah.
The green filter is a green filter.
Yeah, it's Mountain Dew Classic and a stolen restaurant tumbler, but it's it's still pretty tasty.
That might be an episode.
I conjure images, some of which defy explanation.
But there's a degree to which this film is unabashedly trying to be cool in a way that is not lampshaded.
You have to respect it.
Yeah, you kind of have to. Where it's later things when the Matrix trends became trends
and
derivative, people were recognizing them and trying to buck them or trying to make fun of them. But at that time, it's no, this is just purely trying to be cool, and it's not being post-ironic about it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something pure about just approaching something without irony and just going at it and committing to the bit. We like committing to the bit here.
It's the thing we do.
It's the thing we do.
The action scenes are cool. Slow motion explosions are cool. There's something about a code full of guns and just shooting up all the computer cops, and then Neo's scene where he realizes how to manipulate the Matrix and become the one. That's a pretty cool scene of climax and triumph.
And some of the Agent Smith imagery is really cool.
Hugo Weaving
does a really good job. His performance is good.
Mr. Anderson.
Just so. He's an iconic villain for good reason. The guy's a great actor. It was well written and directed. It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with just being cool.
Yeah.
Without any
And we talked about some of the pioneering techniques of this
yeah.
movie, and while still having a lot of the classic '90s practical effects that had sort of reached their peak at this point. They made miniatures, and this is in the same time frame as the Fellowship of the Ring was being filmed around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Miniatures and special effects and explosions and things like that. There's a lot of great eye candy in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Just the Jolly Ranchers in the lawn. The roll-up bubble gum that you took a bite out of when your older brother wasn't looking. Sideways. And you ate it because you're 3. That was not like I'd know.
Not like you were ever 3.
Or took a bite out of my brother's
roll of Hubba Bubba bubble tape.
Yep, and like I swallowed and all that stuff. Anyway, I'm staying on task today, aren't I?
Just one of those podcasts.
Yeah. You just keep going, don't you?
Yep. Is this real, or are we just rolls of Hubba Bubba gum being stimulated in a jar?
Unity.
Yep. What brings it all together? One. The only way is one.
The concept of oneness.
Yes.
Is what makes the oneness.
It's the circle that makes the circle.
But like, it's all drawn from that central question of what if everything was a simulation? What would, how would people respond to that reality? How would that come about? How would people break from that? What if everything we see is fake and there is a truth out there no one is being shown and no one will accept? That's like the central kind of theme of this film.
I think the movie was originally trying to say something like, challenge the status quo, become transformed by true reality, but people have instead kind of trended in a direction of just radical skepticism that refuses to accept any reality. And that's not really what this movie is trying to say, because Neo accepts, the truth in reality and is able to navigate it and becomes more powerful literally by doing so.
And now maybe the later films undermine this by questioning, is the reality or are there layers to the Matrix? Like
free will, what? Luigi board?
But this first film seems to have that.
Comes by it honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's certainly worth watching.
Yeah. Especially if you like the medium of movies, this is an important film to the medium of movies for the entirety of the 2000s.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I don't know when the next. What would you suppose is the next cinematic like transition point?
Probably the Lord of the Rings.
In a different way, but like
the Phantom Menace. No,
I feel like Matrix was like
that kind of changes the game in terms of what people are doing and approaching.
Spider-Man, perhaps.
I feel like Spider-Man was also like of that same generation of special effects and skin-tight outfits. Like, even
are we saying
like the early MCU? I would point to is that.
I think the idea of a cinematic universe and that kind of
that was like the next sea change, I suppose.
Yeah, it was like the next big marker.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And there was certainly like all-time great films that some of which we've reviewed on this podcast that occurred in that intervening period, but they were sort of continuations of trends.
Yeah.
Or their own unique standalone things. And then, sort of the next movie that touched off a whole bunch of copycats or derivatives or people
like
trying to
industry
recreate
trends. Like the first
ironically
Avengers
enough,
film,
another Matrix movie.
I mean, the first Avengers film introduced people to the sky beam as a climax. And that became a climax for the first half of the 2010s. Anyway, we're getting off topic. And we've made our points.
We have, I think.
I think so.
More or less. Not as succinctly as I'd hoped, but
not as coherently. And
maybe you gleaned something.
It's about average for us.
Yeah.
Speaking of about average for us, where can they find us?
You can find us on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can follow us at on Twitter at Palapapus, and you can email us with questions, comments, concerns, or complaints or suggestions for future episodes, as we have finally received another one. Not like we went fishing for it or anything, but we'll get to that soon, hopefully. Yeah, so I think that was everything. We'll talk to you again in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.